year, everybody, and welcome back to the Couchside Judges. I'm Scott Fontana. Follow me on Twitter at Scott_Fontana.
And I'm Dan Urban. Follow me at the Dan Urban. Follow the podcast at Couchside Judges. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
That should be part of your New Year's resolution. Really should just be your only one, and it's very achievable, so just get on that.
And also add reading the criteria to your list, because that's what we talk about.
That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
My New Year's resolution is to be better at reading the criteria.
Mine is to be able to recite it on demand.
Is that right?
No. But I think I know it pretty good at this point.
I wonder if anybody has that down.
I bet a lot do.
I bet they don't.
As far as professionals, I mean.
I bet they don't.
Okay, you're probably right.
I bet they could remember the rough details of it for sure, but someone to go into just recitation, I don't know about that. If you are a judge who can recite on command this 3.5 page document, please contact us.
Typos
we would
included.
love to hear it. We don't need to put, what's that?
Typos included.
Typos included, absolutely. Got to do it the way it's written, because it's letter of the law, not intent of the law. But see, it is New Year as people listen to this. It is technically still December 31st, 2023 as we record. Rise in New Year's Eve is on right now. Got that a little bubble in my on the corner of my screen. We're recording remotely at the moment.
I'm in actually 2024.
Are you?
Yes, I'm coming from the future.
How'd you do that?
Time travel.
I don't believe you.
Well, that's where I am. 2024.
I know. Agree to disagree. We are here, though, in different respective years, apparently, to go over something we've been noting throughout the course of 2023, which was all of the rounds which we thought a judge just got wrong. Straight up, didn't nail it.
Yeah,
no debates.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard us reference it. Add it to the list. So this is the list we're talking about.
This is the list. This is Judgment Day.
oh, I like that name.
You like that?
Yeah, that's the name of the episode, Judgment Day.
I like it. Okay, yeah. I was kind of toying with it in the days. I was like, I wonder how that's gonna work. But if you're good with it, I'm good with it. This is Judgment Day 2020. Well, guys, we'll call it 23, but
it's 2023. It happened.
2023 Judgment Day, even though it's the start of the new year. Just deal with it, all right? Just deal. Anyway, so yeah, in this episode, we will go over the rounds in that list. We're not going to go over every single one of them. That would take a while. So what we did was, between Dan and I, we watched over the rounds from the year that we had been tracking. We said, okay, which of these do we think deserves to be gone back on, and kind of added to like a more specific ranking type of list. So we pared down our list. Dan had the idea, rather than do, because we were going to originally do a top 10. Dan had the idea, and I think it was a good one, to separate out by a different type of round. So we have our 8-9 splits, and we have our wrong winners, is what we're calling. And then also we do have one in particular this year where there is a 7-8 split,
which just needs to be talked about again.
I mean, yeah, why not? Is it that egregious? Did we really put it on the list at that time? I don't think we did, but I feel like it's still worth going over, right?
Yeah.
We more or less said, spoiler alert, we said no.
Yeah.
But yeah, why not go over that one again? So we will have kind of a little countdown of, it's not top 10 of each type, but we're going to count down from, X number to number 1, worst round score of the 8-9 splits, worst round score of the wrong winner type of rounds. And I thought that was a good idea, Dan. Nice job.
Thank you.
You have your moments. But yeah, I mean, we have now we kind of pared down a list that was about 20, I believe it was 27 rounds in total, not counting the 7-8. When I went over, by the way, there was one round on there that I looked at and I was like, you know what? This has been misclassified, where I took it out.
What round was
that?
It's
a case dismissed.
What round was that one?
That was
I only put that on there because I didn't know what we were going to do with this list, and I thought it was a very interesting round.
Oh, so this was not a round. You made me watch this round for no reason other than it was a fun round.
I wrote "nah" next to it, and I figured you were just not going to.
Confused.
I thought you were just not going to watch the "nahs."
Oh no, I watched everything.
Yeah, all right.
I watched every round on this list.
Tried to save you time.
Nope, overachiever over here. But okay, so knowing that, then I can tell you that we actually only had 26 rounds where we said, nope, wrong score. We ended up paring that down, again, not counting a 7-8. We ended up paring that down to 13 total rounds. So basically cut it in half. And again, we separated them out. So without further ado, I think we covered everything, right?
Yeah.
Let's get into it. And we're going to start again with that 7-8 round split because that is the one that again, it just we have to talk about it again. It happened. We don't have like another place to talk about this. Let's talk about it, right?
Of course.
So that, of course, was in Ilia Toporia's unanimous decision victory back on June 24th. That was the UFC on ABC headliner in Jacksonville. And the final scores for that one, pretty lopsided. Even outside of the 10-7 round that we got here. 50-42, 50-44, and 49-45. The round in question was the fourth round. The judge who awarded that round, Chris Lee, gave the 10-7 to Topuria. We are calling that the wrong score. We're saying that the right score was the 8. The judges who assessed that one were Sal D'Amato and Eric Colon. So, Dan, I ask you, what do we need to say about this round? First off, what happened?
Well, I mean, Topuria, he's winning on the feet, landing good, but really, he's taking his time. For like the first 3.5 minutes, it's just a solid 10-9. And then he drops Emmett in swarms, and he's probably at an 8 now. Emmett somehow works his way to his feet. You know he's in a bad way. Final 40 seconds, he gets dropped again. We're definitely at a 10-8 now. And Topuria ends the round on top, landing some punches. There's good damage. There's good dominance. And there's good duration. There's not overwhelming damage. There's not overwhelming dominance. And there's not overwhelming duration. So 8.
That's what I saw. I watched it again. Because again, I watched all of these rounds. I watched this one actually right before we did this show. Because I just wanted things fresh. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, look, it's a real good round. It's definitely one of the strongest rounds of the year, I think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, of course.
I think so too. We might have to do something like that too next year, where we just kind of go over the biggest rounds, the closest to the 7, right? That would be fun. But yeah, I don't think we got there because the bar for a 7 is so high. I just don't think it's there. I don't even think the damage really got to that point.
I don't know. His left side of his face is like masked.
It's close. Yeah. But I don't know if we got there. Damage is definitely the one where if we would rewrite it, I would say damage ought to be like almost the be all end all. If it's massive damage, that should probably just be enough for a 7. But that's not what the criteria asks for, right? It asks for a little bit more. And wants the overwhelming dominance and overwhelming duration. I just don't think we got that there. So yeah, I don't see the 8 here.
No, I mean there's like 1 minute of duration, and that doesn't fall under overwhelming.
Sure. Now the other question I think we should be asking when we go over all these rounds is, could the right score, this of course being the 10-8 here for Topuria, could the right score have changed the result of this fight? The answer is no.
Nope, not at all.
Not even a little bit. We have a definitive result.
We do, and that was Ilia Topuria.
It was a runaway winner here. Again, that's it for our again lone 7-8 split. We got to move on now to our 8-9 splits. Did I say 7-8 before? I meant 7-8, and this is 8-9.
This was a 7-8 split, yeah.
Yeah, so then we're at the 8-9.
We're on 8-9s here.
We pared it down to 7. So what we did is Dan and I both kind of separately said, okay, these are the ones we like. As some of them, when we say liked, we mean agreed were some of the most egregious misappropriating of an 8 or a 9 in a round for the year that we went over anyway. Mostly this was all UFC rounds. This was select PFL and Bellator rounds that we did look at on the show over the course of the year. For the record, if you guys have any rounds that we'd like to be looking at that you think, hey, might qualify as rounds like this throughout the year that maybe we miss, now the Bellator is off the table, and I guess it's technically on the table, but now it's on the PFL table. Let us know. We'll keep our eye out for that. If you got rounds elsewhere, I'm interested to see that as well. But yeah, so we have narrowed down our 8-9 splits, all told, to 7. That's the ones that Dan and I both agreed on. We did our rankings separately. We averaged them out. that gave us our definitive ranking. So Dan and I, more or less, this is the consensus ranking. We won't necessarily agree on every position. Dan, if you feel like interjecting where you had it or whatever, that's fine. I might do the same, but more or less, we're working with this list. And let's start with 7 because we're going 7-1. We only picked 7. I had a couple more that you didn't agree with, and I just chopped them off. I just said, you know what? Not necessary.
Just cut them off.
Just cut them. You guys will never know. You'll never know what I was thinking.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you cut this one off.
Was that? Oh, the one at the bottom?
Yeah, the first one we're talking about. I wouldn't mind.
Well, of course, and I know why. This is a PFL round. It was round 2 of Ty Flores' unanimous decision victory over Delamonte. This was actually the first PFL regular season event of the year on April 1st in Las Vegas. They were doing it at Virgin Hotels, I believe is where it was.
Is that where they did it?
I have to look it up again. I knew it, but I forgot. PFL 1. That was, I can give you that right now. It was the theater at Virgin Hotels.
Oh, okay.
Yes. That was close. I didn't remember the exact name, but I knew where I was talking about. I could have found it. If I was in Vegas wandering around, I'm like, hey, there's fights I'm supposed to watch at the Virgin Hotels. I'd be like, oh, it's over there.
I'm surprised the PFL didn't contact the Apex to ask if they could use it for the night.
Not in any way, shape, or form surprised that they did not end up.
I mean, with all the way they sub out their entire company, I just figured, why not? Just use the UFC Apex.
No, didn't see it coming. Yeah. Not in a million years would I have seen that.
We got coming up. PFL presents Bellator.
Yeah.
International series.
Let's deal with that in the coming months and stuff. You know, this is January 1st. Let's wait. You know,
new year, new me.
We're still on. No. We're still in 2023. We're talking about old rounds here. So this round, of course, like I said, April 1st. By the way, that round, the previous round we did, the 7-8. If you were curious to hear more of our thoughts on it, we talked about that in episode 246. You can go back to that one for Ty Flores and Delamonte. This was from episode 234 when we went over this again. The wrong score here was an 8 for Flores in round 2. The right score was the 9. The 8 was assessed by Tony Weeks. Get used to hearing that. Mike Bell and Junichiro Kamijo were the ones who gave a 9 here. Now, keep in mind, Mike Bell in particular is the most likely judge to give an 8. And of course, we're going to talk about that one a little later as well. But he's only given a 9 here. And I think that alone says a lot.
That does.
It does. Why don't you talk just a little about what happened in this round?
So Monty, he's winning early on the feet, and then he gets a takedown. He lands some good shots. He attacks an arm bar, and that really turns the round around for him in a bad way because Flores now is on top, and he's doing some good damage from the top. I mean, he's not really securing any dominance. There's no dominance, no really good duration, I would say. But I do think he's got some solid damage. Not an 8 variety of damage. So I think it's just a 9.
I think it's a solid 9. I think it's a really good 9.
So it's at the bottom of our list. I mean, it's one that I guess I'm not going to get too crazily upset about. However, I do think it's the wrong score.
Yeah. Hey, I'm with you. I'm right there with you, my friend. But we're going to have to agree. We're going to have to agree here with Judges Bell and Junichiro Kamijo, given the right score here. I'm not going to get, like I said, I'm not going to bend out of shape. I'm agreeing with you here. It wouldn't have changed the result of the round, of the fight, because we have 2 29-28s and a 29-27, all for Flores. That 29-27, of course, being Tony Weeks' score. So all we would have had is unanimous 29-28s and one less round for us to break down, which would have made Dan happy.
Oh, yes. I was thinking that if we named this list, how everyone angered Dan this year for having to talk about rounds that we shouldn't have to.
See, if I'm you, I like to talk about rounds like this. I don't want them to happen, but I think it's interesting to talk about them. Usually we're like, yeah, I can see both sides.
I love 8-9. I love 8-9 debate.
8-9 debate is fun.
It's more so round winner arguments where there shouldn't be is the ones that upset me. Or if it's a terrible, terrible fight where like they threw 4 strikes on each side, and I'm like,
when you say a terrible, terrible fight, you mean a fight with Jocelyn Edwards?
That's a bad one too. At least
any fight with her, pretty much.
But I meant like,
or any heavyweight fight. To be fair, that goes more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, Rose and Carla. Like if those kind of rounds that are split, it's like, come on, I gotta watch this again.
Yep, those are the ones we dread.
Ugh.
But nonetheless, this was the 7th round in our list. Let's go on to number 6. This one we talked about back in episode 223. It was the first round of Mateusz Rombeski getting the win over Nick Fiore. Unanimous. 30-27 two times and a 30-26. But that first round happened on January 14th, almost a full year ago, back at the UFC Apex. This was the ringing in the new year in the UFC calendar. We had another situation with it's Judge Tony Weeks. And he's given the 8, and we don't see it at all. We think it's wrong. We agree with Judges Saldamato and again Judge Camilla, who saw the 9 here, and I think they're in the right. Why don't you go talk about why?
It was a good slugfest that Ron Becky was clearly winning. He's landing with heavy power, not really eating much in return, but he did take a bit of damage to the face, and was got a cut under his left eye. Late in the round, gets a takedown, opens up a second cut on the forehead. He's dropping elbows and punches. I just think it's a clear 9. There's no real dominance. It's just good damage, but again, not that damage that's going to get you the 8 on its own. It's just
absolutely.
It's like it's just such a clear-cut 9.
Yeah, no, I absolutely is. These are the type of rounds where it's like you'd love for it to be an 8. Like we like 8s. We like variety. We think it's interesting and makes things better, but also not here.
Yeah, not here. No.
Not here.
No.
Yeah, sorry, it's not an 8. Tony Weeks, obviously his compass is a little off with the 8s here in these situations. This won't be the last time you hear about Tony Weeks. Moving on, though, down the list. But again, I should also note, this would not have changed the result if he had given a 9 here. Then we would just be at unanimous 30-27s, clean sweep, normal sweep. Just a forgettable fight from a scoring standpoint if we had gotten that. Moving on to the 5th fight. We're in the top 5 now of the 8-9 splits. Aylin or Eileen? I always forget.
Eileen, I believe.
Eileen Perez getting the win over Ashley Evans-Smith. Clearly beat this woman who had been coming back from, I believe, a long layoff at this point. Ashley Evans-Smith. Unanimous decision. 2 30-25s and a 30-26. This was back on July 15th, another Apex show. And you can hear more about that in episode 249. Why we're here is because round 1 was scored a 10-9 for Perez. Again, she swept all the rounds from Judge Brian Pucillo, who was new to Nevada this year. Good to see him. Veteran judge, works all over the Midwest. For him to be able to get into Nevada now, I think from everything I know, seems like a solid addition to the stable of judges that they can pull in there. Not in this case. This was not the case here because the 9 is wrong. We say the right is a 10-8 here. Mike Bell this time giving the 8 alongside Derek Cleary. What happened here, Dan?
Well, I don't know what more you need to do to get to an 8. Perez beat her basically the entire round. She's on top, landing good ground and pound in mount, doing good damage, getting to the dominant positions, minus that final 30 seconds of the round where they just stare at each other. It's just all Perez, and she was close to finishing. All 3 Ds. This is like slam dunk 10-8. I actually had this lower on or higher up on the list, I should say.
Yeah, I didn't have it as high. They're mostly because of other rounds. It has nothing to do with this particular round. A lot of these, it's almost like where do you put them 5-1?
Yeah.
I don't say I would have a problem with it, but I definitely had kind of, it's like, there's a lot of roughness here.
I wonder if that, because it's round 1. It's like, it's just like don't want to pull the trigger in round 1, right? It's a
potentially.
potential.
I mean, Pucillo is not a new judge by any stretch. He's a veteran judge.
Yeah,
maybe there's a little bit of veteran, reluctance to kind of set the tone so early with a round like that. I don't know. I'm speculating. I have no idea. But yeah, we do see a lot of round 1s. I will say, especially when it comes to the 8-9s. Actually, on our list of 7, 1, 2, 3. 4 of them are the first round. So I think that lends some credence to it.
Okay.
I think there's at least some thought there. But yeah, this really ought to have been an 8. When you see an 8, you just got to pull it. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Yeah, maybe Pucillo being a little newer to Vegas and not working all the time with these guys, getting on the same page with them. I shouldn't say guys. There's also Adelaide Bird But getting on the same page probably will come as time and experience there. Not that, again, he's very much an experienced judge, but getting in the same page with everybody in Nevada probably would be helpful to that. Hopefully a round like this was spoken about and said, listen, we want this to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, would not have actually mattered on the scorecards. We were trying to get to 30-25 unanimous. That's what we were trying to get to. Couldn't possibly have changed the winner of this fight. I mean, realistically, Paris could have had what, 7 fence grabs and 2 punches to the back of the head and all this stuff, and she could have lost 3 points and still won. I would have been fine. Also, when I say 7 fence grabs, I mean 42. It's actually the 42nd that gets you the second point taken. Moving on, though, to our top 4 now. We're at the 4th spot. And this one's actually a round 2 of a fight between Jacqueline Amarim and Montserrat Coneo Ruiz, which finished by round 3 TKO way back in August. That was another Apex card. A lot of Apex here. And you guys, actually, I didn't speak about this round. You and our good friend Spencer Kite, who sat in for me while I was in Seattle, you guys spoke about this in episode 253. So I haven't actually gotten to really talk about this round.
We get to hear your thoughts.
Fight. What's that?
We get to hear your thoughts. Fresh.
Oh, I've got some thoughts. I've got some thoughts on this fight. The round in question, like I said, is round 2. And the judging question, we mentioned it before. He's back again. Tony Weeks. Except this time, we're not talking about him giving the 8 he's not supposed to. He's giving the 9 he's not supposed to. Gosh. So we've overcorrected, gone too far the other way. And, well, he gave the 9 to Amarim. And again, Amarim is the round winner in this one. No questions there. The 8 score was what we deemed to be correct here. Judges Camijo and Ron McCarthy were on this one, giving out the right round here. What happened in this round, man?
Well, this is an easy 10-8. I'm not sure what we're looking for if this isn't an 8, like I mentioned in the previous round we just talked about.
We're going to be saying that a lot, too.
Jacqueline Amarim hits a head kick that's partially blocked and caught by Ruiz, and she takes it to the ground. But she's quickly swept with my favorite sweep, the flower sweep. And Amarim starts pummeling her. She's attacking some sub, and then she's getting back up. She's pummeling her some more. This goes on for the entire round. All 3 Ds. This is 10-8 all day.
Easy 10-8, 100%. It's I would say it's actually pretty egregious that it's not an 8.
This has to be an 8.
It's a super 8. It's just a super 8 here. I don't know. Why is this one a 9 and why is the other one an 8? I don't get it, Tony. Where are we at? I know we're talking about different dates there. You know, these are months apart. You know, those ones were earlier in the year where he was given the 8s when he shouldn't have been. Now we're later in the year and he's given the 9s he shouldn't be. Again, it almost feels like an overcorrection over time. You know, but for whatever reason, his compass is almost broken in terms of where you're supposed to be meeting in the middle to give the 8 and the 9. I don't get it.
Yeah, Tony's off on that.
Yeah, super off. Which is crazy because when we're talking about Tony Weeks, typically we're talking about a guy who keeps a very good descent percentage. He's not really somebody that we on this show talk about as like, oh, he's off base here, that kind of thing. And I mean, although his year started off, of course, in the boxing ring when he was reffing that fight in Creed 3.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We had some issues with that. We'll isolate those till later. If you want to go find that episode. I don't know what number it is. You're a super fan, you'll find it. But this was another round, at least, that would not have changed the result. We did have a clear finish here, but also up to that point, we're now talking about someone who was up big on the scorecards. So it would not have changed the direction of the fight, whether it was given an 8 or a 9. We're in, fortunately, safe territory there. We got to move on, though, to our 3rd round on the 8-9 list here. This was the first round of CJ Vergara's victory, 2nd round TKO over Daniel Lacerda. This was on actually a fight night that did not take place at the Apex. We're finally outside of the Apex. This was at San Antonio. Where's San Antonio, Dan? What state?
Texas.
The home of
Shawn Michaels.
Home of Shawn, yes, absolutely. Home of the Spurs. They won a bunch of championships in basketball. They remember the Alamo too. Don't forget that.
Yes, the Alamo.
And some really questionable judging happens in Texas too. And that's why we're here, of course, to talk about questionable judging, not the other stuff. We did talk about this one in episode 233, but well, without further ado, we got to talk about the fact that this is actually the first round of our show where we're talking about a round we couchside overrided. The majority score was wrong. We won't have that too often, but it does come up. This is the first one. The judges who incorrectly gave Daniel Lacerda a 10-9 as opposed to a 10-8 were Gino Garcia and Joel Ojeda. The right score, a 10-8 for Lacerda, was assessed by Sal D'Amato.
Yeah.
Why is this round here, Dan?
I mean, it's kind of a slow round. I just want to point out, I think someone was controlling Lacerda with a video game controller. The way he was fighting, he just kept.
What does that mean?
He was throwing craziness, just spinning back kick after spinning back kick.
So he's spamming
Non-stop.
the spinning back kick
Just
button.
yeah.
It would be like, I think that's like L2 R1 and like triangle or something.
Like he lands a jumping knee, a couple good shots, and on his fifth attempt of the spinning back kick, drops CJ Vergara, and he starts teeing off. Vergara gets on his horse. He's doing laps around the cage to get away. He gets dropped again with another punch, then dropped
He's
again.
Like straight up sprinting.
Dropped again with another spinning back kick. He really got the crap beat out of him in this round. He's clearly hurt. He's running away and he's falling over. He can hardly stand. This is an 8. This got to be an 8.
And this is the type of round that makes me think that, because, I have heard chatter over the years and I've seen things to the contrary, but this is the type of thing that when I watch it and I know it takes place in Texas, I think, are judges in Texas not supposed to give 8s? Because is that kind of like an internal directive? Like, I don't want to see an 8, because you hear chatter about it, and I don't know how true it is, so I don't want to necessarily say definitively this is how it goes. But you watch a round like this and you're like, well, when is it an 8? When do we give an 8 in Texas? Obviously, when you're Sal D'Amato and you know better, you do it, and that was good. But the local judges here, Garcia and Ojeda, they're not giving an 8, and this is obvious. This is an obvious 8. This is one of the stronger 8s I feel like we had in the year. We didn't rank them. Again, I think we're gonna rank them this year. We're gonna do that this year, Dan. I'll keep track of the 8s.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do an episode next year at the end of the year where we just talk about the 8s and we rank them in terms of, oh man, this was the most lopsided round, or giant 9s. If we see any giant 9s, we can throw them on there too.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for just to do it.
Sure. What do you got?
Vergara had some decent offense towards the end of the round when Lacerda got tired.
Okay.
Now I'm done playing devil's advocate. It was not enough offense.
No, not enough
to overtake.
Definitely not.
Being not an 8.
The only way you can kind of say yes, that is the case, is if the interpretation from the judges in question is that, well, it needs to be a beatdown, like a one-sided beatdown. And if any offense happens, then we can't give the 8.
Still one-sided.
That's still wrong. That is absolutely wrong. That's a bastardization of the 8s into criteria. But maybe I don't know. I got 3 Ds here. This is an 8. They just got it wrong. Sal D'Amato got it right. The locals got it wrong. Texas, man. Now the thing with this round is, because this is the second round where the fight ends. We're only talking about the first round here. We don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way, but we do know this. We're talking about a round that's an 8-9 for Lacerda, and the fight is won by Vergara. So he comes back and wins that round. Imagine for a second, let's take us through this journey. Hypothetically, Lacerda loses the next 2 rounds. He survives. He loses the next 2 rounds, not getting any 8s the way of Vergara. This should be a draw. This would go down as a draw.
Yeah.
And that would definitely change the result. If we don't have Lacerda getting his rightful 8 here, then that doesn't happen. Then what we have is a Vergara win, and I don't think that would be right. But that is a devil's advocate scenario, right? That's if and if and if, it's not really the same thing. So, and there's a lot of ifs there. We're talking about round 2 and round 3. We don't have scores for. So. But nonetheless, it does have there's a matzo ball hanging out there, man.
Yeah,
it's a pretty big matzo ball. Not the same way as the Seinfeld way, but there's a fun little reference. We've got 2 more rounds here. We're at the top 2, my friend. And I believe this was actually your number 1.
This was my number 1, yeah.
And I can understand why you had it. I'll explain why I didn't go that way. But we are talking, of course, about round 5. Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko fighting to a split draw back at Noche UFC, September 16th, T-Mobile Arena. The scores for that one, 48-47 each way, and that 47-47 right down the middle.
That's a split draw.
That is how that's what we call it. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. The round was scored wrong by a judge that we respect the heck out of, and we think is one of the best judges in the world.
Yeah.
Even after this, Mike Bell.
Yeah.
He got it wrong. We haven't seen him work a major North American show since then. I don't know if it was a stepping away or quote unquote benching or what, but it, for whatever reason, we haven't seen him at the major shows. I hope that changes. I would love to see him back in the chair at the beginning of 2024.
Would be nice.
He belongs there.
Mm-hmm.
He's earned it. It's not just that he's earned it. It's that we kind of need judges like him in that chair.
Need him.
And I would think somebody like him would take this on the chin and say, okay, I'm going to get better. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to meet him several times. Nice man, sharp guy, knows the sport,
mm-hmm.
cares about the craft as many of these men and women do. But so he got this one wrong. Unfortunately, it is what it is. The right score here was not a 10-8 for Grasso. It was a 10-9 for Grasso, and that was given out correctly by judges Sal D'Amato and Genichiro Kamijo. We did talk about this back in episode 258, not too long ago, about 15 episodes ago. But yeah, let's talk about this fight, man.
Yeah, like you said, you can't go 10-8 here. Valentina is winning pretty clearly for the first 3.5 minutes. Not a huge margin, but she's doing pretty well landing the 1s and 2s, especially the jab on Grasso. Then Valentina decides to clinch, and this was her downfall. She gets reversed, gets her back taken. Grasso starts landing some good shots, attacks some tight chokes. It just wasn't enough from go from losing 10-9 to winning 10-8. I mean, the damage just isn't there. So I think it's just a 10-8 Grasso.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it has to do with how well you think this choke that's kind of being put in is affecting, right? There was an attempted choke from Grasso, and
mm-hmm.
Is it there or not? You don't have a really great angle at it. It's hard to tell. It didn't seem like it. And then also, the level of the ground and pound that is being delivered from Grasso, you could see how maybe it could start heading in a direction, but it never really got to the point where you really thought, oh man, Shevchenko's in a bad way. She's just taking some bad shots,
mm-hmm.
and not for a very long time.
No, just really the end of the round.
Yeah, so that was, I do think we've absolutely rightfully placed this here in the top 2. You had as the number 1. I did not. And the reason being because in a vacuum, right? If this round is like the first round of like a general fight, right? Something on the prelims, we're not putting it this high, right?
Right. But also why I had it at the top, it's the only one on the list that did change the outcome.
You're right.
And
that is fair. Because I'm talking about one in a vacuum. You're talking about it in the context of what actually happened. And that is major context. So you're absolutely right.
You know what, Scott? I don't know what in a vacuum means. I looked it up and I read the definition and I still don't understand what it means.
My friend, I'm gonna help you out because I like you.
All right.
You could have just asked me. In a vacuum essentially means like without the results of anything else, like without the context of anything else. Like if you're just looking at it by itself.
Okay.
You don't know it's a title fight. You don't know it's the 5th round that could decide everything. It takes place in a vacuum.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You crack me up, my man. But yeah, but again, we don't live in a vacuum. We live in the real world. This really did actually change the results of not just a fight, but of a really important championship fight. Now, it doesn't mean that Valentina Shevchenko was robbed just because if it had actually been scored a 9, Mike Bell would have given 48 to Shevchenko and 47 to Grasso, giving Shevchenko the winning the rematch, getting her belt back from Alexa Grasso.
Now that's a reason why also it's not that bad because it doesn't change the future of the division. These two are still fighting for a 3rd time.
They will absolutely have to sort this out.
regardless of the draw, or if he scored it a 9 and Valentina won via split decision. They were
And let's not forget,
time,
absolutely.
So.
This is a split no matter what. We have two judges, one on each side, who can score the fight viably for either woman. Junichiro Kamijo gave rounds 2, 4, and 5 to Grasso. You can defend that. Mm-hmm. That is a very defensible scorecard. There is nothing wrong with that. So there's no robbery here.
No.
Unless you want to consider, hey, someone should have won. That's why it's a robbery, and nobody won. That's the only way you can say, okay, maybe it's a robbery. Mm-hmm. That's the only way I would allow it. And I can sort of get what you mean there, right?
Yeah.
I still don't grant it. I still don't say it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, nonetheless, we absolutely have to accept the fact that this did change. I just don't think, again, if you take that out, would you put it at number 1?
If you take everything out, I don't even know if I have it. Yeah, no, I'd have it at probably not number 1, no.
I think I would still have it on my. Well,
it'd still be on the list.
I can tell you where I did have it on my list because again, it didn't make it to number 1, but I did have it number 3. My number 2 was Lacerda Vergara because I thought that was just pretty egregious.
Okay, that was.
But again, this round is still pretty rough, man. It's there's really only a little bit of time where this starts to get the other way, and it's not big. Mm-hmm. So yeah, wrong score. Fantastic judge. I can't stress it enough. Fantastic judge. Bad score. Bad score. We can have two things at one time that mean different things. It's real. Mm-hmm. We have that here. And hopefully a round like this doesn't haunt Mike Bell forever. I'm sure it won't haunt him forever, but hopefully it doesn't haunt it in the minds of everybody else. Because you know what we did see actually in the wake of this, Dan? I think we spoke about it back in that episode 258.
Yeah.
The fact that so many people on social media, which is like basically just tailor-made to lynch people digitally, most people, while mad and furious about probably losing money or not winning money, because a draw, typically you're probably just getting your bet back, right?
Draw, draw. Bet. I think draw voids it.
Yeah, unless you do 3-way bet, right?
I don't even know what that. I mean, there's so many different ways to win. Now they have point spreads, so that you know what? I'm glad you kind of brought the gambling up.
Okay.
I do not bet on MMA, but I do know that
not anymore.
They do have not anymore. They do have point spreads like they do in a regular like football match.
Right.
And so if you're not scoring 8s and 9s, accurately, it could have effect that way.
Could. That's not something the judges should be concerned about.
No, they shouldn't be concerned about, but it should be.
But it's another complication coming from the crazy gambling masses. But to go back to my point, I don't want to lose my point. Most reasonable people who follow the sport were kind of like, they weren't just like, oh, Mike Bell's the worst, or oh, that Mike Bell again. There was a lot of people who were like, hey, this is a great judge too. Like, we actually respect him as a judge. He got this wrong. But you know what? And it was like, it was crazy to see because we never get that kind of rational reaction from social media. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, it seems like Mike Bell they gave him a little bit of a leash, a little leeway, and they weren't as harsh as they would have been. They're never nice. If they disagree with Sal D'Amato, they're never nice if they disagree with Chris Lee.
They disagree with seeing Sal D'Amato's name.
If, God forbid, Adelaide Bird, she just gets roasted.
Yeah. It's like, well, hey, you used to do that.
Well, that was a long time ago.
That's true. You're enlightened now. You've come to the path of the light. Now look, you mentioned Adelaide Bird. Her name is on some of the rounds that have come up. So it's not like she is flawless, right? But much sharper than I think a lot of people realize.
I was just pointing out who's not getting any leeway with anybody on social media.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's most of the judges. And this, I mean, I saw every judge under the sun, even the ones that like you never hear from. I saw everybody get complained about on social media. If I would say, "Oh, judges are this fight," they'd be like, "Oh, damn, they mess up everything." I'm like, "Do you even know who they are?" Craziness. But yeah, unfortunately, this was the one fight that really did have a tangible effect. But let's go to number 1 now, man. And this one, it has nothing to do with what could have happened. It just was, this was bad, man. This was so bad. Can we agree? This was really bad.
This was not a good one.
Round 1 of the fight we already mentioned, Amarim and Canelo Ruiz. Dude, it's Tony Weeks again, man.
Good old
This is the
Tony.
4th time in 7 rounds of this 8-9 list that we're talking about Tony Weeks being on the wrong end. And again, in another case where he gave an 8 as opposed to a 9. And this one is way worse, dude, because Camijo and McCarthy, they knew it was an 8. But this is so much worse than the first one even. Let's talk about what happened here.
I mean, immediately, Amarim's on top and in mount and landing good, solid ground and pound the entire round. She attacks a super tight armbar. It gets escaped, but she attacks an omoplata and she's kind of on the bottom a little bit. And then she's, you know what? I'm just going to try to choke you. And she gets right back on the back and she's in another super tight rear naked choke before ending the round with more ground and pound. I'm not going to say, no, I'm going to say, how was this a 9? I wasn't going to.
Oh, you say whatever you want. This is the worst.
How is this a 9? In what world? I mean, this is closer to a 7. It's not a 7, but it's closer to a 7 than it is a 9.
It is so much closer to a 7 than a 9. You're absolutely right. The reason it wouldn't get to a 7 is there's a little too much grappling damage happening.
Yeah.
That's usually not what puts you over in a 7 scenario. I think we've pretty much talked to some judges who more or less agreed that there's probably no way to get a grappling-centric 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can have grappling in there, but...
Well, the way it's worded
it's not
now, yeah.
What's that?
The grappling damage would have to be defined and overhauled to make it possible.
Yeah. Now, of course, if you have like several knockdowns plus a close choke in there, I'm thinking back to Davis and Figueiredo.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Joseph Benavidez, that round that almost made it out and might have been one of the most lopsided rounds that's ever happened in the UFC, period.
Yeah.
You can even put that round, by the way, which again ended about 12 seconds shy of the finish of the round, or the bell, I should say. That round is probably way more lopsided even than Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard round 1 of the second fight.
I think I'd agree.
I think I'd agree too. But again, he was stopped just short of that. To get back to this fight though, this is really bad. This is I wrote in all caps on our little list here, egregious. That's a word I've been throwing out here, but this is the one. This is the one that's like, what are we doing here, Tony? And this is round 1, and it's another round 1 we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if, what happened is, did we set the tone and say this can't be a 9? And I mean, this can't be an 8. I got to give it a 9 here. And then in the next round, which again, we already spoke about, this was number 4 on our list, say, okay, well, I can't make this an 8 if that one wasn't an 8. So got to give it a 9 here too. So through 2 rounds of this fight, which Camijo and McCarthy have at 20-16 going into the 3rd round, Tony Weeks has it at 20-18.
Yeah.
He's 2 points off. He's got the same winners each time. What is going on here? That's real bad. I hope that there was a conversation or two after this one to try and bring Tony Weeks' compass back, because it was broken, flat broken.
Yeah, it's broken.
How are we talking about 4 Tony Weeks rounds here? We almost never talk about Tony Weeks on the show. We said this before. He's not like someone that we like quote unquote bag on or something like that. Not in any way. But now I'm like, because of doing this exercise, I'm now realizing just how much Tony Weeks is completely off on what they're supposed to be doing with the 8s and the 9s.
It's all 8 and it's all 8s and 9s. He doesn't really have an issue with round winner.
No, not at all. I can't remember. I mean, sometimes we disagree, but that, usually it's, or basically every time it's, hey, we can kind of see it,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to talk about this one, man. This, like I said, this was from the episode you and Spencer did.
I was kind of shocked at the time, but I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about this one.
I didn't go back and listen to the episode. I listened to it at the time. I was walking along, I forget what body of water it was, but I was walking around at a park in Seattle. I got my headphones in and I'm walking with my family and I'm listening to you and Spencer talk about this fight. But I don't distinctly remember what you guys had said at the time. But were you like heated?
I think I was just upset we were talking about it. I'm like, we shouldn't be
okay. Annoyed, right?
We should not be talking about this round.
Yeah.
In this context, we should be talking if this is a 10-7.
Yeah.
And we just also this ends in the next round as well, because we talked about that earlier. Rounds 1 and round 2 should have been slam dunk 10-8, and they just weren't scored that way. Also, I drove that show. I usually don't have to drive. Usually just be the passenger.
Oh! I think you were driving. I'm like, how could you do that? You have to record. you have to think. But yeah, I'm following you. Yeah. How was that for you, by the way? Was it a little weird?
It was weird. I thought I got the hang of it towards the end.
Yeah.
Once it was over, I was like, now I'm getting the hang of it.
I was so disappointed with it. I'll never go away again. Ever. No, I'm kidding. You and Spencer had a good time. I think you guys did a good job. Shout out to Spencer, even though he didn't he didn't want me to see him in Canada. Jerk. Nah, I love Spencer. Happy New Year, Spencer. That is it for our list. That was number 1. That's it for the 8-9s. We've got 6 wrong round winners to break down too, and then we'll kind of head out. Get some dishonorable mentions, little honorable mentions too. But that's for later. Now's the one where I think this is probably where Dan's even more mad, right?
Yeah, because we shouldn't have talked about these, but we did.
That we did. Not really a whole lot of a sleek transition here, but let's start it off with the 6th worst wrong round winner score of the year, and that came in round 1 of JJ Aldrich versus Liang Na, who got the win in round 2 by TKO. This was a fight night in Singapore back on August 26th. We talked about it in episode 255. Because this was in Singapore, we had judges kind of being pulled in from different parts of the world. Some Aussie judges, some judges from that region of the world, and then also some English European judges. So this is actually the second example we have of a couchside override being coinciding with this being a round we're talking about. And that is 2 judges got it wrong. Judges Howie Booth and Luke Hill both scored 10-9 for Liang. You know who got it right?
Who?
David Leatherby.
Good old David Leatherby.
He gave this one to Aldrich. And that is the right way to go. That's what we have deemed on this show. Why is it the right way to go?
Well, this is a clear round for Aldrich. We'll start at that. On the feet, she's the one landing all the heavy, impactful shots. Liang's missing quite a bit. She gets a couple headlock takedowns, does nothing with them. Maybe lands a punch or two, but also eats a couple elbows from the bottom, especially in the first exchange. Aldrich ends the round on top from a failed headlock takedown by Na, landing a couple shots. Now, here's where I fault Aldrich. She could have done more with her position there. But I still remain adamant that she didn't need to win the round. But she should be seen as the winner here, 10-9.
Yeah, could you do more? Sure. There's in every round there are opportunities left on the table. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of times there's opportunities left on the table. It didn't matter because there's no reason to watch this round and come away with the understanding that Liang did more here. I just don't see that. I don't really know what we're looking for to give this one to Aldrich. I don't know what judges Booth or Hill saw to give it to Liang. I'm just glad that Judge Leatherby was in the chair to give it the right way because, I mean, for goodness sakes, this is only round 1, and again, fight ended in round 2, but if we've got a majority score that's wrong, that's kind of the type of thing that opens the door for a potential, robbery situation, right? If you get one judge who got it wrong in one round, I mean straight wrong, usually you can kind of make it through. Not with 2. It's a little harder, especially in women's fights. They can often be very close. There's no reason to think that Liang couldn't have, maybe taken a round somewhere 2 and 3. You just never know. Because it puts Aldrich at the corner of, geez, I did everything I was supposed to do in round 1 to at least win it. And then she basically can't make another mistake.
Yeah, she got to be perfect after that.
So a real unfortunate situation. She took matters in her own hands and ended it in round 2. Like I said, that is the saving grace here. But it shouldn't have come to that. This is a bad score. We unfortunately do see this type of thing happen more frequently when we're talking about that region of the world, Aussie judges and that kind of thing. David Leatherby is a much more veteran and experienced judge than, Howie Booth's been doing this a while, but they just don't have as many fights in that region that utilize the 10-point must system, the ABC system. So there's less reps that you get there, and it can, probably just lead to less sharpness, I would imagine. So, but hopefully a situation that, once again, I imagine somebody like Mark Ratner is probably able to have a conversation with these guys and say, oh, this is what we're kind of looking for and that kind of thing, because he is head of regulatory affairs for the UFC and very experienced from his time with Nevada, and again, just knows the stuff, right? Let's move on to the 5th fight on this list. Round 2 of Elvis Brenner's victory, split decision over Zubair Tuhugov, 30-27, 29-28, and then a 29-28 the other way for Tuhugov. This is actually the first UFC pay-per-view that we're talking about. on one of these rounds. UFC 284 back on February 12th last year in Australia, same region of the world. I mean, Singapore is of course Asia, but more or less same judging pool. The wrong score here is to give it to Brenner 10-9. The right score by extension would be to Hugov 10-9. Evan Field, very experienced judge out of that region of the world, gave the wrong score here. Just didn't nail it this time. Derek Cleary and Barry Foley, another experienced judge from that region. Derek Cleary, of course, we know works stateside, all over the place. My judge of the year for 2023. Got to remind of that. He got it right with Barry Foley. Why did Brenner get this one wrong?
Well, I think it's pretty clearly a Tuhugov round. Brenner missed a ton of his strikes. Among some of the ones that he did land, he had a nice head kick early and a nice body kick. I want to point out that throughout this round, Tuhugov is bleeding from the face. It is not new damage. This is previous round damage.
Yes.
Throughout the round, Tuhugov's is the one landing the stiff, impactful shots. He's the right score.
Are we basically just talking about a situation, like, because I think I made this note, right? It's like the blood alone fooled Judge Evan Field here. It's like the only explanation I can really come up with.
Yeah, I would have to think that.
And I don't know that. I mean, again, this is just reaching for reasons that we don't know, but we're just trying to come up with, well, why is this here? Why is this here? It's the only thing that makes sense to me is that the presence of the blood. But that's it. There's no reason to give this to Brenner otherwise.
It's not opening a new cut. It's just knocking off the Vaseline that's stopping the blood.
Yeah.
From coming out on its own.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Now, the saving grace here is, even though this is a split decision, this round could not have changed the result here because Evan Field was that 30-27 score for Brenner. You take the point, throw it Tuhugov's way, you've just got another 29-28 for Brenner, which is a very reasonable score. We're split on round one as well. That round was Barry Foley gave that to Tuhugov.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. You can kind of go either way with that one. A split decision is fine. 29-28 either way is fine. 30-27 is not. That's the bad score.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think it's just more offensive that the round was given this way than in Aldrich and Lina.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
I would agree.
All right. I had this one probably a little higher than you, actually. Oh no, you did. I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? I kind of regret. I had this behind here. I've kind of talked myself into it. I had this number 5, and I had Lina 4. So I've kind of talked myself into it. I think I would switch them if I was given a chance to, go back.
The only reason I have this Aldrich behind is because she could have done more. I mean, she really could have.
Sure.
But whatever.
Yeah, there's nothing here that I can give to Brenner. So I thankfully we had Derek Cleary there, we had Barry Foley here. Everything went as smoothly, and it could have been a split, so that's fine. Moving on to our top 4. Number 4 here is the third round between Angelusa and Reese McKee, which went down as a unanimous decision, 229-28, 30-27. Did I do that right?
Is that what it was?
I believe so. For some reason, I'm having a doubt in my head. I've got to double check what the final scores were. Yeah, we had 229-28, 30-27. Okay. That is correct.
In Paris?
Say again?
It was in Paris?
In Paris, yes. In Gay Paris. Back on September 7th. This was a fight second. Excuse me. That was a fight night. We talked about it in episode 256. There were a lot of these rounds on here that happened like within a month or so of each other. It was just kind of like a bad stretch. Like we went like all summer and like most of spring without any of these, and then all of a sudden it got like bad.
I remember
the real bad ones here.
I think I remember texting you complaining that we have to talk about this round.
Well,
in particular. I mean, I do that often.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we peek behind the curtain and say that this is something you do often?
Yeah,
all the time, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you get furious with me when they're about to pitch a shutout, and you're like, they dropped the ball, they got a round that was split on. It's totally reasonable. Now we got to talk about it.
I just root for perfection.
Nice,
but
you're kind of like a taskmaster. You root for perfection, but when they don't hit it, you're like, again,
yeah, again.
What again?
We could have done it, guys. We could do it.
One day. But here we are. We are talking about this round that happened back in September. Angelusa got the win. No one was questioning that. So we're at round 3. He's already up 2 rounds on every card. But two judges rightfully gave the third round to McKee, and those were David Leatherby and Dower Ransom, our English judges come over to France to work this one. The French judge, Christophe Chapuis, gave this one to Losa. No.
That's exactly what you wrote. No, right?
I think I wrote no many times. No, different round.
Oh, okay.
That was a different round. No, let's see. I wrote my little note here was very clear. McKee flips it in the final minute with big damage. Does that sound about right to you?
That sounds exactly right.
So what's happened in the rest of the round, though?
Losa gets a quick takedown, lands a couple punches, eating some elbows from the bottom from McKee off his back. But, if the round ends now, it's pretty easy to score for Losa.
Yeah, there's not really much that McKee has done.
Halfway point, they get it back on the feet, and, it's kind of even, slightly tilted for McKee. In the final minute is where it all changes. McKee shoves Losa to the ground, has him running away. He's landing some big shots, has Losa clearly hurt. You can't score this a Losa round.
No.
Just can't happen. I had this higher on the list, I believe.
You might have.
Yeah.
And I think, again, this is another situation where you almost can't go wrong. You had this one as your number 2 round.
Okay. Yeah.
But because I had this lower, and the reason I had this lower, I had this as my 6th on this list. The reason I had this lower is because I think this was a round that basically, because it flips near the end, it's okay, it's not as kind of you're heading in one direction most of the time. I think with a lot of these other rounds we've spoken about and we'll speak about, this was the one where it's there is a distinct change of momentum, and it's okay, how much do you weigh that against the rest of the round? Now, as a judge who's working a UFC event, you ought to be able to distinguish that anyway, which is why its presence on this list makes total sense. Christophe Chapuis is a French judge. We have Angelusa, who, if I'm not mistaken, he's from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but I believe he does train out of France. So sort of a local fighter. I don't know if we're getting a local fighter discount kind of thing here, kind of what they used to believe was happening when the fights would go to would go to Brazil, right? It was notorious that I guess technically he does identify as fighting out of Switzerland, right? So he's not technically a local, but
wait, real quick on this subject. I was at a live fight. Sean Santella beat a Brazilian fighter by decision. The Brazilian fighter grabbed the microphone and said, "Brazilians never going to get a fair decision in the United States," and slammed the mic and walked off.
I love that. That's really funny. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. I didn't want him to lose, but also, as we know, Sean Santella was our jiu-jitsu coach, so I don't feel bad. So full full disclosure there, of course. No, he is a Swiss fighter, so he's not quite local there, but he's probably close enough. He probably had some local support there. Nonetheless, neither here nor there. It doesn't really matter how we got there. The wrong person was given that round. I'm just quick glancing at MMA decisions here, and only one of the media scores actually gave all 3 rounds to Angelusa. It was Keith Schillen over at Sherdog. I know Keith, but sorry, Keith, you got this one wrong, my man. And so did Christophe Chapuis, whose opinion actually mattered, but it didn't actually change the result of the fight because, again, Losa had banked 2 rounds. In fact, you awarded a 10-8 in one of the first 2 rounds. I'm seeing right here.
All right. I mean, I have no idea.
I'm not sure which round you gave the 10-8.
What episode was this one?
Actually, you gave round 2 as an 8. I'm seeing your score.
Round 2 was an 8 for Losa?
You gave an 8 to Losa for round 2.
Maybe he had an 8. I don't know. I can't remember what that fight.
You're not the only one. We got Nolan King. Of course, we know Nolan. Drake Riggs. We know Drake.
What episode was this one?
This was episode, did I say that? It was episode 256. Why don't you go listen to it? We'll take a break from this episode. You go listen to that episode, and then we'll come back to this episode.
Okay.
No, don't do that. Please don't. I want to get this done. But yeah, so again, it didn't really matter. Let's move. Do you have anything more to say about this one?
Yeah, we're done with this round.
I think we are. Let's move to the top 3. And this now we're thinking real bad territory here. Personally, round 4 of Corey Sandhagen against Marlon Cheeto Vera, which went down as a split decision by scores of 50-45, 49-46, and then back the other way at 48-47. That's always a red flag. It doesn't mean on its own that the out judge here got it wrong, but we're a couple points off now. So we got to figure out what's going on. And round 4, as we talked about back in episode 233, which is the same episode, I should point out, as the CJ Vergara Daniel Lacerda round that we talked about. This was the headliner in San Antonio, which again is in what state?
Texas.
Lone Star State. And here's another judge we actually just spoke about when we were talking about that particular event, Joel Ojeda, who awarded this round, wrongly I might add, to Chito Vera. The judges who got this one right in our assessment are Chris Lee and Sal D'Amato, giving this 10-9 to Sandhagen. And the heck happened?
Well, it's mostly a striking affair. Sandhagen does take a few. He does shoot a few takedown attempts. Isn't able to get it.
I think he got credit with one. No, or am I thinking of the other? The fifth round we also talked about potentially for this, and that one didn't qualify for the list. It wasn't as strong.
I think Sandhagen's just landing in bunches. Definitely has the volume edge. Chito just doesn't have enough activity. If he's landing, it's one at a time. Don't think it's very often that he actually is landing. He does have a nice flurry at the end of the round, Diego Sanchez style. But, that's not going to do it. I mean, I think this is a pretty easy Sandhagen round.
This is a super easy Sandhagen round. I'm sorry. This is. And honestly, that fifth round, too, is probably pretty easy, too. I think we did have it on the list for a reason. It just didn't qualify as strong as some of these for our particular worst scores list here for the show, right? But this is definitely the round where it's like, man, you can't give this one to Chito. You just can't. It doesn't work. This has to be Sandhagen. You have to reward the actions that are happening because of Corey Sandhagen. You cannot do that with Chito Vera, which, by the way, is crazy that we're now not just about a year after this fight. We're going to be watching Marlon Vera against Sean O'Malley for the title. Vera loses this to Sandhagen very definitely, no matter what, if it's a split decision or not. This is definitely a loss. And Sandhagen wins his next fight. Chito wins his next fight. But Chito's the one who gets the title shot over Corey Sandhagen because presumably people didn't love his last performance, Sandhagen. And also he was coming off it. Nonetheless, it definitely reminded me of how weird that situation is. It's almost like, well, we just want this fight to happen because Sean O'Malley had lost to him and we think that would be more fun. That's what it felt like. Anyway. Well, I said that. What's that?
Nah, never mind. We'll go down too deep a rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, I think we probably found too many rabbit holes along the way, right? Yeah. We probably got to try to work our way toward the end here a little bit. This round again, we're not talking about something that would have changed the winner here. Corey Sandhagen had two very lopsided scorecards his way: 50-45 and 49-46. But if we get this one right, we are not talking about a split decision anymore. We're calling this a unanimous decision. Does it really matter? No. But I think if you at least get 3 judges who all have Corey Sandhagen the winner here, we don't have as much hand-wringing. We're probably a little less down about having to talk about it.
Yeah.
As well, you especially. But I just, a split decision, right or not, it's going to imply to people, okay, we had a close fight, right? We don't have that here. Whether that's true or not, whether that's fair or not, that's what it's going to say to the world. And realistically, it should not be a split. Joel Ojeda got it wrong again. That's 2 times he's on this list. He's on it for one for a wrong winner and one for the 8-9 split. I think it's fair to say the next time they go to Texas, we probably should not be seeing Joel Ojeda work a main event. I think it's probably good to give another judge a chance from Texas to hopefully not drop the ball. Fingers crossed. Want to move on to 2?
Yeah.
Let's get to our runner-up for worst wrong winner. And this is a Bellator round, the only Bellator round on our list for this show. We had another one that we didn't quite make the cut. This one was back in Bellator 293 over March 31st in Temecula, California. We actually talked about this the next week after Corey Sandhagen, Marlon Vera, episode 234. The fighting question is the first round of Adam Piccolotti's victory over Maldonado. He finished this fight by round 3 submission with a rear naked choke. And really, it's a good thing that he did. We'll get to that a little later. But the wrong scores were submitted by 2 judges. We're talking about Couchside Override once again. Elliot Kelly and Chris Crail, veteran judges working many events in California, especially Chris Crail. He's worked, as I understand it, more bigger fights than Elliot Kelly has. Maybe I'm misremembering, but Chris Crail has a wealth of experience that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as Mike Bell, who got this one right, gave this to Piccolotti instead of Nallo, as Kelly and Crail did. I know I made you watch a Bellator round. At least it was on YouTube, and I gave you a timestamp.
Yeah, that helped.
That helped, right? It's not so bad.
Yeah.
But even when you watch on ESPN Plus with the UFC fights, you got to find the time. I gave it to you. I made it easy.
Yeah, but they separate it by fight. They
just
know the fight. It's like I don't know why they can't do it for PFL as well. You're on the same service, like split it up the same way.
Well, when I talked to Don Davis, right when they had announced the purchase of Bellator, he did talk about. We'll wait and see what actually comes of this, but he did talk about the fact that Bellator or that PFL is planning a much bigger library for fights that people can watch, and that would include the PFL catalog, presumably the World Series of Fighting catalog, and now Bellator as well. So they're touting thousands and thousands of fights that they can be able to show you. How they will present that, I have no idea. I hope it is better than Bellator was ever able to achieve, and I hope it's way better than what PFL has tried to do. So we'll see what happens out of that. But that's neither here nor there. That's another rabbit hole, man. We got to fill in that rabbit hole. Tell me why we're talking about this round.
Well, it's pretty clear for Piccolotti.
Sure is.
I do want to say I had this round much lower than you did.
You did.
I thought Nallo did do pretty well on the feet, and I do think he had the edge there. It's mostly him throwing front teep kicks to the body of Piccolotti. But once he gets taken down, he gets his back taken. He's eating solid shots. He's losing all the transitions. I mean, he's kind of getting dominated in this sense of the grappling. It pushes over to Piccolotti, and it pushes over to Piccolotti by quite a big margin. Not in the sense of an 8. I'm not saying that, but
sure,
a decent amount. It's like he's the clear winner of this round.
I had this number 1 on my list. My notes are as follows, all caps. How do you give that to Nallo? You can't. This is so bad. This is really bad. I don't know what it is we're counting here. This is so clear. This is abundantly clear that this is a Piccolotti round. It just is, and that's. I'm talking about this in a vacuum too, like to bring back our vocabulary of the week, right? In a vacuum, this is a bad round. When you account for the context of it too, it gets worse, dude. This round very likely would have changed the result of the fight if Adam Piccolotti doesn't get his rear naked choke submission finish with 34 seconds left in the whole fight, because he does lose round 2. On all the cards. Nallo wins round 2. So because it's a minority score that was wrong, or that basically got wrong, and was not given to the right winner, we're already in a situation where Piccolotti needs that finish to win. If he just goes out there and gets a 10-9 in round 3, he's losing this fight. And that would be robbery. That would have been an actual robbery. I don't think we had a robbery this year. Unless, again, if you want to define robbery as someone who should have won, didn't win, in which case neither woman in Shevchenko, Grasso won, and that sort of meets that description. I'm still saying no, but this would have been an actual robbery.
Rose and Carla robbed me of my time.
Well, that's a little different.
Oh.
Wait, that was last year. Oh. That was 2 years ago. I mean, that was 2022.
I'm still upset about it.
I understand, but you know what? We're getting close to the point where I'm going to say, shut up. Move on. We're here, man. We're in March 31st, 2023, and we're talking about it in 2024. Technically 2023, although you time travel, right?
Yes.
Yes, of course. No, I'm fuming about this one. I'm just so glad that Adam Piccolotti was able to do what he needed to do and get the win, because good golly, what if he didn't? Crisis averted, just barely. Like I said, 34 seconds. 34 seconds. That's it. He was so close. Man, oh man. All right. The last round, my man. We are at this point. Did I say who saved the day, by the way, on this round? Mike Bell?
You did not say that, no.
Credit where it's due. Mike Bell was number 2 for the wrong reasons on the other list. He's number 2 for the right reason on this list.
Save the day.
Look at that. Sometimes you're the GOAT, sometimes you're the hero. Hope he comes back soon. Save the day as well. this brings us to our final round that we're going to go over here. The number one worst wrong winner of 2023. This was your number one, my number two. The third round of Dan Hooker, who got the win over Jalen Turner by split decision, 229-28 for him, 129-28 for Turner. This was back at UFC 290, July 8th, T-Mobile Arena, the big 4th of July-ish International Fight Week event of the year. We talked about this back in episode 248. Jalen Turner was awarded this round 10-9 by Judge Adelaide Bird. Derek Cleary and Ron McCarthy gave this one to Dan Hooker. I'm sorry, but Ms. Bird got this one very wrong.
So I before we talk, I want to say, and the judges, when we did the top round, I said I remember this fight for the good judging. I was talking about the round one and round two, where
yeah,
I remember I remember this. I gave praise for them nailing these scores, and then obviously round three I forgot about.
You forgot. Well, here's your reminder a week later.
So this is bad. Round three's bad. Rounds 1 and 2, very good. Very good.
Can't win them all, I guess.
Round 3 bad.
So why is it bad? We have to illustrate to our listeners why this is bad.
Okay, so it is pretty close on the feet early. Both guys are landing, with good effect. I think Hooker's a bit fresher, lands some shots that, forces Turner to try to shoot for a takedown. Doesn't get the takedown. And then Hooker drops him, with a nice shot a little while later. And is on top of him, landing strikes. I mean, he eats a couple elbows from the bottom, but it's mostly Hooker ground and pound for the final 3 minutes. I don't see how anyone can watch the round and be like, yep, that's a turnaround for sure, and then score it for them.
Sure.
2 media members on MMA Decisions did score it for Turner. Not sure if they had the third round for him.
Well, I can point out to you, I can at least tell you that our guy Jay Petrie, who of course we went through the ABC judge and referee training with, he did award the fight to Turner, but it was rounds 1 and 2.
Yep.
I don't distinctly remember what the argument would have been for round 2, but all three of the listed Sherdog judges here, or Sherdog scorers, I should say, Jay Petrie, Ben Duffy, shout out to Ben, and Edwin Ayala, they all had this one as a Hooker round 2. So at least there was that.
Okay.
I can't speak to whether they dropped the ball on.
No, I think one and two. I remember for sure. I was very happy with the judging.
But again, I don't know if round 2 could have swung, because it did not. This was a unanimous Hooker round from all three judges in round 2. This round is round 3, of course, and for Judge Bird to give this round 2 Turner, it just you can't really see it.
No,
you just can't.
No, not this one. Great fight.
I still feel like
this
had been, I feel like, dude, if Piccolotti, if the Bellator round had been a UFC round and like in a main event or something like that, you would have given it number 1 over this one. I feel that way. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's also what goes in my decision. It's like, I mean,
because you don't like Bellator.
Who cares?
You don't have to care
who cares? Like in the grand scheme of things, is Adam Piccolotti versus Mandel Nallo is the result in either man's career like that big a deal?
Piccolotti is a rising prospect. I do think something like this can really set somebody back. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, in the sense that it's a fight,
I say
you want to get it right.
35 and is actually 13-5. So I'm thinking of somebody else entirely. So forget.
Oh, okay. All right.
But he would have lost 2 in a row. Maybe in 3 out of 4. Maybe he gets cut. Now he's on the roster for PFL. It does definitely change things. Absolutely. The stakes are high. They're just more personal,
I guess.
But either way, this was a bad one. No matter how you slice it, round 3 of Hooker Turner, you have to give this one to Hooker. The damage is too high. It's so clear. I can't accept an argument the other way. Any more thoughts?
Here's the thing.
I should point out it wouldn't have changed the winner at least.
Well, you see that you try to judge without this vacuum that I just learned about.
Wait, what?
You judge it in the vacuum.
Yeah.
Where you rank it. See, I kind of take all the other factors in play.
Well, like I said, if I actually added in the factors, I would have given even more credit to Piccolotti because he would have lost the fight.
Right. No, I understand that he loses the fight, and it's bad for him.
It becomes a robbery.
I just don't.
You're telling me you wouldn't put a robbery up at number 1?
I mean, I guess you have to.
You would absolutely do that, 100%.
I hate when you're right.
Fair enough. But yeah, so it would not have been a split decision if Judge Bird had scored this one for Hooker. It would have just been a straight unanimous nod. Instead of a quirky like, why is this split? You know? But at least we wouldn't have had that robbery thing, right? And again, Piccolotti did not get robbed because he took matters in his own hands.
He won.
So. You know what Dane always likes to say, right? Never leave it in the hands of judges.
Yeah. That's why I had Gaethje and Fiziev higher.
Yeah. You did. Yeah, you had this one, and I actually kind of left it off. That was one of the ones that we could have had on, and I kind of opted not to.
I just put because it's more high profile.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's
kind
of why I went there.
I get it. Actually, you know what? I'll give you a peek because you gave one of your like more or less an honorable mention. That was an 8-9 split. I'll give another honorable mention. This is one of the 2 rounds that we could have done, right? I'm gonna peel back the curtain a little bit for you guys. Miesha Tate, Julia Avila, which didn't happen all that long ago. Episode 269. It was one of the last events we had. The first round of that, I think it's not great to give that one as a 9. That's a 10-8 round for Miesha Tate. Chris Lee was the one who gave only a 9 there.
Shutout.
Which is crazy because Chris Lee again gave the 10-7 round of the year. So what are we looking for? Come on, consistency, crazy consistency. That's all I want. But yeah, so that was the only one I had that I left off. You, by the way, you might as well point out Justin Gaethje Fiziev. That was the 3rd round. The judge who gave gave a 10-8, I should say, to Justin Gaethje was Paul Sutherland. Mark Collette and Clemens Werner, they were the ones who gave 9s rightfully to Justin Gaethje, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's that pretty much does it though, right?
That does. That does it for the list.
Yeah. We got some dishonorable mentions here. I just wanted to point out too that there was one round this year that we actually singled out as a round that we thought should be on our greater list of rounds we thought were not scored right. In which all 3 judges actually were on the same page. We don't like to do that. We tend to just defer to the judges. This one was, 1, it was a little too much. And number 2, it was all local judges who realistically just don't have the earned trust with national audiences. And people like us who actually look at this kind of thing. Who looks at this kind of thing besides us? There's no people like us. It's just us. People like us are you and me. But we did disagree with the first round of the CSJ favorite Jocelyn Edwards versus Lucia Pudilova. Pudilova loses this fight on the cards. But round 1 we thought definitely should have been a Pudilova round. It actually all went to Edwards. It's not the biggest one, but I felt like we had to single it out. The judges on that one, this was in Kansas City, Missouri. So the local judges here were Ross Swanberg, Henry Gary, and David Hoyette.
That reminds me of Miller Boyette Productions.
Miller Boyette? Yeah, I remember Miller Boyette. What did they do?
Full House, Family Matters.
Oh, I love Family Matters.
Step by Step, I believe.
I was watching, you ever watch the show? This is very much a non sequitur. Do you ever watch the Amazon Prime animated show, Invincible, superhero show?
No.
Okay, so I just watched it the other day at a friend's recommendation. Binged it really quick. There's only 12 episodes and like a special that are available right now, so it wouldn't take you long. But there's a high school where a lot of these kids go. The high school is Reginald L. Johnson High School. The principal is Principal Winslow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he is voiced by Reginald L. Johnson.
I like that. I might watch it because of that.
It was very. You should watch the show anyway. But isn't that fun?
Yeah, it is good.
There you go. Total random there. Other things I wanted to point out: the fact that yes, we mentioned Tony Weeks 4 times. He had the most rounds on our greater list too, which again included 26 in all. Again, no wrong round winners. If I could talk, it was all of the 8-9 variety. We had 3 rounds each from Adelaide Bird and Joel Ojeda. We talked about 2 from Ojeda. We talked about 1 from Bird, but they had rounds from both lists, right? The 8-9 and the wrong winner. 5 of the rounds on that greater list happened at the 2 Texas events that the UFC held. And then, of course, there were a lot of events internationally. Over 3 continents, Asia, Europe, and Australia. We had 7 of our rounds came from there. So almost half of our list comes from either international events or Texas. I feel like that's not a giant, portion of the UFC / Bellator and PFL calendar that we talk about. So the fact that we had so many from there, I think, is a sign that depending on where you go in Europe, Asia, or Australia, particularly Europe, you do got to be a little more
You mean particularly
worried about what kind
Australia?
of judging you're going to get, right?
You mean particularly Australia?
Particularly Australia, but we also have Singapore, where the judges often come from Australia as well.
I know, but you said particularly Europe. I think that's
No, what I mean by that is
Oh.
Europe. It's less of a problem.
Oh, I gotcha.
When we go to UK, I mean, we're getting judges like Ben Cartledge, David Leatherby, who again was the savior on a couple of these rounds that we talked about. We're getting guys like that, guys we trust. Daryl Ransom. It's a little less when we go to an area where, say, we got to rely on Luke Hill,
Gotcha.
or Christophe Chapuis, unfortunately. Every time we go to France, we're probably going to hear his name again. Hopefully it won't be for negative next time. But yeah, so that was unfortunately the negative dishonorable mentions. There are some honorable mentions, and at this point, I really just wanted to shout out the judges who made the right call at least 3 times on these rounds that either we talked about or that were on our greater list. You might have heard some of these, and some of these most of these names are not going to surprise you, but Sal D'Amato is number 1 here. 11 out of 26 rounds, he was the guy giving it the right way. A couple times in the minority too. So those were some big overrides. Junichiro Kamijo had 7. Derek Cleary had 5. Ron McCarthy 4. Same as Mike Bell having 4. Of course, he had one the other way, but hey, I think we have the good outweighs the bad on the whole in a vacuum. Our word of the week. And then David Leatherby had 3.
Yeah.
Good on all those judges for being sharp, setting good standards, and doing their best to make sure that the right person gets the round.
Well, I do want to say, 26 rounds really isn't that much.
No, it's not. So, I'm glad you pointed that out, actually.
Of all the rounds that are scored in MMA across the major promotions, 26 really ain't that many.
So I did a quick look at my list. Now, this is going to include the fights that ended in the first round and were not scored. So you have to take out at least a portion of this number. But I had 1,111 separate rounds listed that any time a fight started, right? I didn't get the time to narrow down without that, right? But the fact of the matter is this: let's take out like even a quarter of that, right? Let's knock it down to like, I don't know, 800 rounds. And some of these are Bellator and PFL. So realistically, we're taking out, I know there was 4 from those 2 promotions. So it's really down to 22 rounds out of like 800 UFC rounds, more or less. This doesn't happen very often. It may sound like it's negative, but on the whole, I think this show should actually truly put in context just how rare it is for the judging to be this bad.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen all that often.
We're in the best place we've ever been.
I would say more or less, yes, but I think nothing beats the 2020 year of the pandemic, where we basically only had like the same 12 judges working, so they got super comfortable, and we hadn't reset the whole 10-9-8 thing with the stupid round we keep talking about from Adesanya Blahovic.
We're in a bad place with 8-9.
We are not in a good place with 8-9. I think that's fair.
On the whole, judging, I think
especially when we got 20 weeks in there, right?
We're in a good place.
Yeah. No, you're right though. It's absolutely fair and absolutely deserved, and we got to give credit where it's due. So yeah, the judging is in a good spot. It could be better. We've seen it better, but I think we can get back there. And I do think that the fact that people like us are putting more of a spotlight on it, I don't think is a negative. I think it's a negative in the attitudes that get put out there on social media. But if you're not on social media, I think honestly it's a good thing, because it's sort of a check against everybody. We're looking at all of these rounds. We're talking about all these rounds, and hopefully the judges really pay attention to the fact that, like, hey, I see these other judges doing well. I want to do just as well as they are. This is what it looks like when they're doing well. You know what I mean?
All right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Something to aspire to.
Yeah.
Any more final thoughts before we close out here about the worst scores of 2023, my friend?
Let's keep the list where it's at. Going forward, maybe a little smaller. Strive to be better.
Maybe.
Even though you did, it's like we said, 26 rounds out of that many rounds really ain't bad.
Not at all.
But we can still be better.
Always aspire to be better. That's what I tell my kids that. I say, do your best. We're proud of your best. You can work harder. You can get there, and you will. And I believe in you, just like I believe in my child. No, I don't want to do that. That's patronizing.
All right, that does it for the worst scores of 2023. We are back again next week.
And we're going to be back with the annual data show.
A more positive spin on things, typically.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
Or at least more interesting on the whole, right? It's usually come across like, oh, fascinating, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening.
Take care, y'all. Happy New Year.